Good evening. This is Mary Kate Corsi, Chair of the Auburn Public Library Board of Trustees, and I'm calling our meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. on Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. This is an open meeting of the Auburn Public Library Board of Trustees. It's being recorded at Auburn Public Library in the Merriam Room, consistent with Governor Baker's original executive order, March 12, 2020, which suspends the requirement of an open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location due to the COVID-19 virus. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cablevision. Is anyone else in this room recording? The agenda for this meeting was posted on the Auburn Town website on Tuesday, September 26, 2023. Permit me to confirm that members of this body and persons anticipated on the agenda are present. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Matt Toth.
Present.
Erica Breesacker.
Present.
Vera Crane.
Present.
Steve Redding.
Present.
And Mary DeCourcy is present. Town employees participating, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Molly Hulser.
Present.
Great. Okay, so we will start the meeting. I would like everyone to refer to the notes that Steve has been so generous to. Can I stop for a second? We have a guest tonight, and at the pleasure of the board, can we have Cynthia Carey present to us from the Auburn Public Library Friends before we get into the minutes? Is that possible? Is that okay with everyone?
Right.
Cynthia, will you join us, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed that beat.
I'm Cynthia Carey. I'm a member of the Friends of the Auburn Public Library, as well as a director and an officer. I'm the clerk, so I take the notes, do a lot of the advertising. So just a little bit about me and my role in the Friends. I'd like to start out with just acknowledging all the work that the board did a few years back to reestablish the Friends. And again, all the work that was done to get our 501c3 status established again. It's been a couple years now, and we're rolling along. We're well on our way. We're our own separate organization. So the topic I wanted to talk a little bit about was the new collections policy that was posted fairly recently, I think, on the library website. The Friends is mentioned in it a couple of times. And I would respectfully ask the board, though, in future, if you're going to include the Friends, perhaps give us a heads up. That way we can maybe have input and discussions and make sure we're both on the same page, so to speak. So that would be a request from the Friends. There are two items in here that I'd like to bring to your attention that I think may need to be corrected in the policy. So, and I can give you my marked up copy. I can give you e-copy if you like, whatever works for you folks, whoever's got the original drafts. So, but on page 3, there's in the middle of the page it says funding. And materials purchased for the collection for the public library are paid for with funds provided through the annual operating budget from the town. Additional funds are sometimes provided through grants, fund trusts, and from the Friends of the APL. The Friends of the APL do not ever give monies to the library for the collection. So I think that needs to be struck from the policy, would be my recommendation.
It's okay.
It's not what we do. We do, monies for the programs, the items, or the decorations, or even fixtures, if, maybe a computer desk or something like that. Those types of things we would do, but not for books for the library. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. And then the other item, you do mention the Friends, accepts book donations, absolutely fine. 501c3 charitable organization, very good, not a problem there. But the very last sentence where it says, page 14, at the end, gifts to the Friends may be given a receipt for donations which may be used by the IRS. As written, it's not complete and may mislead people. And that is because, as you see in the sentence right before that, the library does not appraise donated books. The Friends do not appraise donated books. If the Friends gives a receipt for a monetary donation, that's one thing. We can say, yes, they gave us $500. Here's the receipt, we're a 501c3. If somebody gives us 20 hardcover books and asks for a receipt, all we can give them is a receipt that says they donated 20 hardcover books. We're not going to put the value of the books down there. So I think this might be misleading to somebody who was reading it and didn't understand the difference, that we're not going to, there was $20, $30 books. We can't do that. We can't, a used book. We're not knowledgeable, or do we have the wherewithal to give them a receipt for that sort of thing. So my preference would be just to strike that sentence, and anybody who is interested could come directly to the Friends and we can explain our policy to them.
Great. Ira, did you want to say something?
I was going to ask if you would prefer to remove it or amend it, but the question was answered.
Okay, great, okay.
Mayor,
Yes,
the reason that that's in there is because the Friends only gave receipts. They never made any appraisal. Just gave a receipt that we got 3 boxes of books or 25 books. It's the same thing that Savers does. They don't appraise the donations that you make to them. They just give you a receipt, and then you're supposed to have the honesty to put down, I gave 5 boxes of clothing and 3 boxes of kitchen goods.
I don't argue the point. All I'm coming from is I would prefer to explain it from the Friends policies and procedures point of view, rather than potentially or possibly misleading somebody in this document. This is a library policy and a board policy, not a Friends policy.
Yeah.
What is the language that you believe is better?
I do not have the language to propose at the moment. If you want to propose something to me, but to me, I think it's superfluous, really, frankly, for this policy. Because you're talking about the Friends, receipts for book donations to the Friends. It's really,
You don't give
It's-
those receipts?
I beg your
You
pardon?
wouldn't give a receipt for
We
books?
would give a receipt, but it's, again, it's the Friends as a separate organization, our procedures and policies. It's superfluous here, in my opinion. It's not needed. You're saying up here that we're a 501c3 charitable organization, that's fine, and that can be included. And people probably would assume from that they could ask for a receipt. Again, I don't want to mislead people with
Okay.
something that's not specific.
Just for my own interest, does Friends have a policy that for how they operate that we could maybe refer to in the document?
Well, we have a set of bylaws, and, we have things like we have our receipt book, and we have, a few other little, documents.
Yeah.
The bylaws are certainly available to anybody who would like them.
Would it be appropriate to reference it in the collections copy?
In my opinion, I don't think so, because you're really talking about book donations.
Yeah.
That's really the focus
Right.
of the procedure, is how does the library manage their books fundamentally? You're getting some extra information that's very helpful to people that, hey, if they've got books to donate, library doesn't take them, maybe you go talk to the Friends. Beautiful, thank you. We appreciate that.
And
But again, I don't want to go too far down.
so do you mind if I ask though, because we, at the last meeting, addressed the fact that the collections policy was not yet posted on the site. So it's only been posted on the site for a couple of weeks. Do you mind if I ask you like the origin of your research into the collections policy and why you're here tonight? Because I didn't expect
No,
you, but you're welcome.
And it just came up.
But just to
like
be
yesterday.
transparent, please.
Absolutely, no
Please.
problem at all.
Yeah,
I usually don't, obviously you know that, don't
Yeah.
attend the meetings in person.
no,
I don't even watch them live. Probably a couple, 3 weeks later, when I've got a little bit of time,
Sure.
I pull them up on YouTube.
okay,
I pulled the meeting up on YouTube, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago.
Okay.
Probably-ish.
okay,
And you talked about the policy going up on the website at some point.
okay,
So yesterday or the day before, I said, oh, I'm gonna go check and see if it's there.
okay,
That's really all it was. It was
Okay.
just me
okay,
being late.
okay. No trouble. No trouble. It's just the timing is interesting because it just went up, just literally went up within the last, I would say, 2 weeks. So I just, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and I had,
Even though we had it ready in the spring, but it just went up. I want to say our last meeting was the first week of September. We addressed it. We requested that the director post it. So it probably hasn't been posted for probably even 2 weeks yet. So just the timing is interesting.
well, and I remember watching the meeting from last spring where you were working on the policy. And I think I checked sometime in the summer to see if it had been up yet, and
Sure.
I didn't see anything.
Okay.
And so when I was just watching, like I said, the last meeting on YouTube a week ago, whatever it was,
Okay.
I thought, oh, I'm gonna go check and see if it's there yet.
Fair enough.
Yep, that's really all there was to it.
Okay.
Okay,
Go ahead.
So-
There.
all right, so back to my original question, but just to clarify, our intent in including you guys was really because people do sometimes want to donate books, and we wanted to redirect to you guys because we really value all of your contributions to the library. So we want to definitely keep that language in, but we don't want to, and we figured adding in language about receipts would create, almost like an additional incentive for people who do put that on their taxes. But I wonder if it would be preferable to either remove the sentence or to add in that the Friends do not appraise,
That makes
but
sense.
may be able to give a receipt. Because we were trying to kind of cover all the bases in a way that was beneficial to all parties, maximally beneficial to all parties. So if there are books, they go to you. No hard feelings that they don't go to the library.
Sure.
And hey, we'll throw you a receipt, but we won't appraise.
I like that, Vera, from the standpoint that that's actually, I don't, did the Friends have a meeting about this?
Again, this just came up a couple of days ago when I was reading the new policy. I've
Okay.
only discussed it with Linda. She wasn't able to attend tonight. She sends her apologies. If you would like to further discuss it, she said she could pretty much count on coming to the next meeting if you would like her to. So I'm here as representative.
We don't want to push you out of your comfort zone at all.
And it-
Go ahead.
But I'm agreeing with you, Vera, because that was really part of the intent, was that there are people that are going to give major amounts of books to the Friends, and all they're asking for, there's no appraisal. If there was any language in there that suggested an appraisal, that would be a mistake, because we're trying to be very clear that there would not be an appraisal,
Actually,
only the receipt, which is what Savers does.
I didn't mean to, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Well, and the reason I mentally lit on appraisal is because the sentence right before that says the library does not appraise donated books. But gifts to the Friends, we can give you a receipt. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Fair point, fair point.
That's why
Very
I
good.
went there, so to speak.
How about we play with the language and then run it by you so
Yeah,
that
let
we
me-
can, yeah.
I was gonna say, let me just throw in an idea, and it's just off the top of my head.
Of course.
That questions about donations to the Friends can be directed to,
Okay.
and our email address or
That sounds
something like
That
that,
sounds great.
so that
Yeah.
it's saying, here's your contact.
Mhm.
If you want to donate to the Friends, and they can give you the whole scoop
Okay.
on what the deal is.
Okay.
I can do that.
I get it, but you see where my mind was
I
going
do,
with it?
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. No, you make a valid point. It does imply something more than what it is.
That's where I went when I read it originally, so I thought, I'm not gonna be the only one.
Right, also point taken, if we play with any language involving the Friends in the future, we will definitely run it by you.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Absolutely.
Total oversight on our part. I apologize for that.
Taken.
Anything else, Cynthia?
I don't know who was the one doing the e-copy, the typing. There were just a couple little, typos and stuff. If anybody is interested in
Yes.
what I had found, I'd be more than happy to share.
Great.
Yes, please.
And we always welcome the Friends, not just to discuss the policy, but we'd love to hear updates and have the board ask questions, and so you're always welcome.
And also, the board has, per the Friends bylaws,
Yeah.
the opportunity to designate a non-voting member of the board to attend the meetings too,
Great.
if you so chose.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much for
Thank
hearing
you,
me. I really
Cynthia.
appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thanks for being here. Very good. So we will move to the next item on the agenda to review the minutes from September 6, 2023. Mr. Reddick, thank you so much for providing the minutes. Did you get a copy? Okay. Can you spell your name with an I? Is that right? Dory with an I? Yes. Yes. And is this the correct spelling of your name, Becky? Yes. Very good. Okay. Yes.
You just-
Which one?
Where is it?
Oh, yeah,
Get that. Get that. Move to accept the minutes.
So I just, it's asked Dory on the side. I know she spells her first name Dori. So I would just, before we, is there any other edits before we vote to accept the minutes with those edits?
What number is that?
That would be paragraph 6.
Okay.
And it says, starts with the board tabled, and it just has Dory Vecchio. She said her last name is spelled correctly, but her first name is spelled with an I, Dori. Is there any other adjustments? No? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
All right. Do I have a second? Second. Second? I'm just going to do a roll call to accept the minutes. Matt said yes. Erica, yes. Vera?
Yes.
Steve Redding?
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. Vera, of course, yes, that's unanimous. Excellent. We're going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is the director's report. Molly?
Yes. Does everyone have a copy? I think it was sent out by email. So this was written by the library director, and I'm reading it on her behalf.
Mhm.
So facilities, replaced ceiling tiles again in the Merriam room. Leaks were identified on Friday, September 29th, coming from at least 3 places in the roof. The DPW will examine the roof next week and inform the director of their findings. This may require a roofer to repair the roof. The new play area in the children's room, I asked the DPW to build shelving unit in the area where the children's room staff desk used to be located. They built 2 excellent sections which allow for options to section off the space for play space, for housekeeping, baby care, vacuuming, etc. We've had continued issues with the entry doors and had to request another service call. The door is fixed once again. She's looking into costs for preventative maintenance agreement for the doors. Approximately $160 in funds were provided by the DPW Parks Department for fall flowers and decorations outside the entrance of the library. The director purchased them, the Parks Department pulled out the summer flowers, and the library staff planted and will maintain fall ones. Scheduled a carpet cleaning for the children's room the day before the November holiday. Windows in the foyer also to be cleaned, and hopefully spot cleaning in the Merriam room. Updates. The director is currently working on the state aid financial report. She's also writing grants for the Auburn Cultural Council. and registered for a November webinar on climate adaptations for library facilitators. For technology, we had an update to our PC reservation system. That is the system that patrons use to log into our computers. It was done remotely by CWMARS with the library director and I having our input. The summer reading program, there's more details about this in the town newsletter, but to give a summary, we had 344 children registered coming from 15 towns and more than 11,000 walk-in patrons in total during the summer. So we are now beginning to catch up with some of the priorities that we weren't able to address during the summer. Also added a new section in the children's room. These are wonder books. They're similar to the box books, but have a subject matter for older children. And there are some chapter books and graphic novels. And they have been very well received so far. We are trying to find some room to add more of them. We are also currently working on the reading level sections, reading and adding new content. This section has been a priority for a while that we couldn't get to, but are now working on. The Friends provided $300 in funds toward our annual Halloween celebration, which will be on Saturday, October 14th, 10 to 1. In the past, we've had more than 200 children and adults during the course of the 3 hours. It's a really busy and exciting program. They do a parade around the back of the library in costumes, and then some other indoor activities, craft stories, scavenger hunts inside. If the weather isn't conducive to the outdoor parade, they will move that and the trick-or-treating inside the library. And the Friends also provide additional funds for programs like the Animal Adventures Indoor Zoo. The other items, the assistant director position has been posted. The senior library associate position will be posted soon. The library section of the Auburn Account newsletter was also attached with this. It has now since been published, so it's also on the town website. In November, we'll be welcoming 24 classes from Bryn Mawr and Patchogue schools over a few days. It was a lot, but they're really fun. The Auburn Account. We provided more than 30 dual language books to Auburn Youth and Family Services for the initiative to help the immigrant families in Auburn. They're kind of from our box books section, so they are on loan to them for now. And the director is planning to work with the director of the Board of Health for more options on scheduling ESL classes. And the bill schedule was also attached. The email for the board members, the director said it was unclear whether the board wanted her assistance in setting up a town account and for individual emails that are needed to access the group account. So she contacted IT and submitted a ticket about that.
Yep.
And
She
then
emailed
sent
us.
a separate email about that.
Yeah.
And then if there are any questions, I will take them down to pass along.
Any questions, Matt?
Yeah, Molly, on the summer reading program, we said 15 towns were represented. There's a good statement in the news from the Auburn Public Library, where 80% of the programs are Auburn residents.
Right.
Because I've heard people say, well, maybe we're just providing services for everyone else, but that's really a good number. And then where would the positions be posted for the assistant director and the senior library associate? Do you have an idea?
I believe they are on Indeed and on the MDLC, Mass Board Library Commissioners website.
Thank you. And then the other thing I found very interesting was the possibility of scheduling ESL classes. How serious is that thought?
I don't know details on that,
Okay.
but I can pass it on to
Yeah.
the director. She can.
Because I think that would be really interesting. I'm especially interested in that now as we're getting more immigrant children in the community. And that means that there are parents who might be interested in that as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good.
So can I ask, the senior library associate, that's in addition to all you guys, right? Not instead of any of you guys? We like you, you know.
Yeah, just as separate position.
Okay, excellent. I was curious, and then not necessarily addressed in the report, but about the library, I just have a question. Have you guys started offering more programming geared towards adults? And I'm asking because my husband spotted something that he was like, oh, they're offering this class. I think that's really cool. But it wasn't addressed, so I was curious.
I don't know about more per se. During the summer, a lot of
Yeah.
focus is on children's programs. So now that we're back in the fall, there's really more
There's adult programming?
going on.
That's
We
awesome.
have job assistants, one that's putting on a Zoom program. That's a weekly one,
That's wonderful.
things like that. Yeah.
Okay, I'd love to hear more about that next time.
I'd just like to give a note of appreciation to the library for reaching out to the recently arrived immigrants and talks. I think that's exactly what a library should do in the community, so thank you.
I agree. Any other questions or comments about the director's report? I know it says bill schedules attached. Is it an APL expenditure report? Did you want to share?
Yeah, that is the.
Okay, great. Any questions about that? No? All right, then we'll move on. We are very excited to have our Assistant Town Manager, Dory Vecchio, here to answer questions related to, we talked about the last meeting, collective bargaining agreement, and in terms of specifics about questions about suggesting goals to the town manager. So I guess I'd want to turn the table to you to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Dory Vecchio. I'm the Assistant Town Manager, HR Director for the Town of Auburn. I've been here since March of this year. Prior to that, I was in the Town of Blackstone for 2 years as their Town Administrator. And prior to that, I was with the City of Worcester for 23 years in multiple roles. I'm so thrilled to be here. I saw your agenda a couple months ago, and I asked to be able to come in. I wasn't able to make it for the last meeting. But the first thing I want to say is, based on the notes from your meetings, is there's confusion on what to say and what you can't say. I am a resource for you, whether I'm here or in my office. If you have a question, because there is a lag when it comes to collective bargaining agreements and employees, but there's other ways that things can be said, and I want to help you with that, because it's very difficult unless you've been in this world to maneuver that. And I sense some frustration, and I understand. So that's the first thing I want to say. I can tell you some of the things you can't say and some of the things you want to stay away from, but you're going to forget most likely. Give me a call or send me a quick email. I'm here to help. I spoke with the town manager. I'm here representing him as well. We want to work with you. We want to, our library is such an amazing resource. We have amazing staff. We're so proud of everyone. And we see your contribution to that as well. So I am open to any questions you may have.
Great.
Dory, I just had the biggest question because the frustrations that we had over past meetings and with the discussion that we had with the representative of the union and some of the clear threats that were made at that time to board members about using any language. And one of the things that I asked the question, where in the agreement would it be identified or interpreted to deny members from using the word licensed librarians, MSL, children's librarian, technology specialist, or other professional positions that might be consistent with Commonwealth libraries? Because we were told that we were not allowed to use that language, which on the face of it is absurd
Right.
for a group that represents a library in the Commonwealth.
Understood. I don't know the history of it, and I apologize if you felt threatened, or I'm not sure what happened with the union. Obviously, it was before me. What I can tell you is that there are positions within this collective bargaining agreement, specifically the senior library associate title and the library associate title. Those are collective bargaining titles. The work that they do, their benefits, their hours, their whatever associated with them cannot and should not be discussed at this level. If you have an issue with an employee you can always come to me or to Ed. But in general, we have to try to keep away from getting into a discussion about a town employee that's in the union. Actually, any town employee, but definitely in the union. But there are things that you can, so it's all in context, and I think I'd have to learn more. I have watched a couple of your meetings to try to get an understanding, and there were some operational questions that I think are fine to ask. One thing I would ask is if, our biggest thing is not to, like, for instance, if you think we should have another assistant library director, I wouldn't recommend that at this table. I would recommend it to Ed or myself, because that's part of a bargaining strategy that we will, or actually it's a union position, not necessarily her, but it could be, because it could still affect it. I would recommend you talk to us first, because your input is very valuable to us, but you don't necessarily want to give out any information regarding employees so that the union can say, oh, your board of trustees wants this, so you have to give it to us. Do you know what I mean? Just like in general. So that's one of the biggest things. And I ran this by our legal counsel as well. It's, again, in context, and I'd have to learn more about each of your questions. You can talk about, say, like some of the titles we don't even have here. So if you're, like you said, there's some titles within the Mass Library system, there's no reason why you cannot bring those up. I think there's been confusion in the past because you have to be very careful, and that's where I want to be a resource to you. I think it's a gray area at times when you're talking and you're getting close to positions that are in the collective bargaining unit. And I think Erica would probably know from most people is that that's a really important issue. And one of the issues that I did find when I look back was the discussion on volunteers,
Yes.
which is a wonderful idea. Unfortunately, that is a huge union issue, only because if you think about it, it is a great idea. I agree with you 100%. But we have a collective bargaining agreement with us, the town, you're part of the town, you're here representing the town, and a collective bargaining agreement, and they have union work. And they own that union work. I can't bring in a volunteer to do that union work, or else we're gonna get a grievance and we're gonna lose. So there are other ways that maybe we can be productive or talk to the union, and I would love to be a liaison, and try to help, because I think we're all here for the same reason. We're all here to make this library better. And so yeah, it's very confusing and it's frustrating, and I can see why, because it's sort of like a duck and weave type thing. And hopefully over time, you can rely on me and just say, hey, I'm thinking of talking about this.
Right.
You don't have to, I'm not telling you to. You do what you want as a board, but I want you to know that I'm here as a resource. And it's some things you can say and some things you can't.
You know, or actually, when I think about it, we've never had a resource to be able to raise those questions and to get a helpful response on that. Our concern with volunteers was not to take up anybody else's job. This was, how do you supplement it when there's so many things that can't get done in the library that may be able to be given to a paraprofessional? So it was never, the conversation was never to which jobs can we eliminate
Right.
in order to have those things. And I think when we talked about a children's librarian, we don't have one. So it's not like we were talking about someone in this position.
Correct.
And so those things like that would be acceptable to be able to talk about. But it would be better to at least have that conversation, that Mary or the chair would have that conversation with you or Ed
Absolutely.
beforehand, and then we could go ahead and talk about that. Because I think the volunteer is a big issue for us.
Okay, and that's something we can look into. And once you give me more details, we can look into and delineate. We might be able to delineate the duties. From what I hear, I'm not sure we can, because they're still shared with some of our non-union members, and the union's okay with some of that, and I think they're listening to me right now and saying, what? But I would be willing to definitely talk to you about it and talk about the duties. We did advertise Like Molly said, we advertised the assistant, that's been out for a few weeks. And I just advertised the senior library associate. I have a lot of resumes for that, and that's a requirement of a 1-year library experience. I didn't know if we'd get it, and we probably have at least 10 that are definitely qualified right now, and I have advertised that through Indeed. So, and I monitor those daily so that we don't have to pay for the ones that aren't qualified, but I'm working very closely with the director on all of this, on the job descriptions, on the posting, and people are starting to come in. I think once we can fill those open positions, you'll be able to see a little bit of, actually our employees may be able to see a little bit of a relief, because they work long hours and they work very hard.
Yeah, that's what we've talked about, the fact that there are so many openings. Are either of these, both of these positions, or either of them require masters in library science?
Oh, yes, the director position does require a master in library science. We did a lot of research into that position. We wanted to have someone that could cover for the director if she's out on vacation, someone for the staff to be able to go to if the director can't be reached, someone that management can go to as well if the director can't be reached. And it's also just really important for structure. I think you guys understand that, to have that type of planning.
Yeah.
So we are working diligently to fill the positions. I know that was one of your issues as well. And I'd be happy to talk to you more about the volunteer thought, and figure out if it's something that we might be able to do or not.
I think what we were talking about with the strategic plan was volunteers really extend the goodwill in the community for the library. And if we're ever looking for, I know we're talking about some kind of small expansion right now, but if we're ever talking about adding more to the library, the more people we have that are committed to that, to give the library a voice in the community, the better off we are.
Right.
That's part of what the volunteer was all about.
Right, I agree, and I think we can definitely look into it, and we can see the best way to make that work. It depends on what we have them do, is really the
Sure.
bottom line. What we have them do, if it's work that our current union employees are not doing or assigned to do, then we could most likely get that done. But if it is something that our union employees are supposed to be doing, we cannot take it away from them. We have to offer them overtime to get it done. We have to work with the unions sometimes to get things done. But it's really important, and out of all my experience with unions and with negotiating and conversations, is they own their work. And that is a key. And I respect them for it. Do I agree with them all the time? No. Sometimes at the collective bargaining agreement, it's a struggle. It's a struggle for me as management, but they do own that work. So we can see if we can work with that. I'd be glad to help you.
You know, my interest is volunteering in a very narrow sense. If there's something that, we hear from the library director that if she, there's like this piece of funding that she would like to write a proposal for, but she just can't find the time to do it. And somebody like me, who, and I'm interested in how we as individual library board members can help and volunteer.
Right.
And if I can jump in and say, that'd take me like an hour to write up for you. I don't see that really conflicting with anyone's job in the library.
I don't see it as
Is that,
as you're explaining it, I don't see it either as a
Yeah.
conflict. I would ask legal, based on your position here, if you can do that, because it's
Sure.
like a dual position. This isn't a paid position, right?
No.
Okay, so that's good. Well, probably not.
Sorry.
You did. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Since
You know
we're
what I mean?
volunteers
Yeah.
right now.
Right,
Yeah.
so there's a chance, yes, that you'd be able to do that, but that would be, I would definitely check with our attorney to make sure, just for your sake.
Okay.
But yeah, that's not union work.
So can I just ask, just clarifying question, under item 5, So the context, we've talked about using these terms like licensed librarians, children's librarian, technology specialist. That was never anyone's job. The discussion was about how to, as Matt said, expand and make the library more rich. But the other piece was, in past meetings, some of the contention was around, we're very interested in staff that are already employed here, having the opportunity to professionally grow in order to be a potential library director in the future. So I just want to be very clear that it was always in the sense of growth. It was a growth model. We were trying to discuss these things. So can I ask you those specific terms? Are you saying that that we as a board cannot use terms like during meetings, licensed librarian, children's librarian, technology specialist?
You can say all of those terms.
Okay, just want to clarify. Okay, great. And I know that these did not exist. These are ones that you created. Senior library associate as
Those
Right.
are our actual union titles.
Okay.
That employees here carry.
Okay,
My recommendation is to be cautious when you're talking about these positions, that
Okay.
you want to add them.
yeah, I see.
You may want to add them, you might want to talk to Ed
okay.
and say, this is what I'm thinking, so from administratively, we can work on it together. A children's librarian, yeah, maybe that's something that would benefit the library. I would mention that to Ed as well. But no, you can definitely mention those titles.
Mhm.
It's not
Okay.
a problem.
Great.
I mean, but I
Thanks for the
understand that,
clarification.
yeah, it's,
Yeah.
So I just wanted, in the spirit of keeping everyone around the table feeling safe when
Yeah.
they speak, I think part of the question was around, like, I came onto the board as a newbie, basically, and so it's my inclination to say, so all the librarians who work here, right? And the response is, you can't call them librarians, for example, as a hypothetical. I'm not promoting anybody, I just don't know everybody's title, right? But colloquially out there in the world, people assume the person behind the counter is a librarian, right? So I use it in that context, but I just want to make sure that if we speak that way, we're not putting ourselves or anyone else at risk, because that was kind of the vibe that was being put out there, and I want to make sure that we're,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
that
indicated that we were doing that, we weren't doing that.
that we're speaking as
Yeah.
people who live
Yeah.
in the community, who
Yeah.
care about the library.
Yeah.
And not as people who are management of any sort of staff or have the in-depth knowledge of who's union, who's not, what exact title somebody holds. We know everybody's library staff, and we're not looking to step on anybody's toes. So I think the impression that was floating out there in the ether was we weren't allowed to say certain things because of things in the contract.
Right.
And I just want to make sure, we're allowed to be human and say it the wrong way sometimes without risk to ourselves or others.
I cannot guarantee that. I cannot guarantee that. You can talk about things operationally regarding positions we don't currently have.
Okay.
I would keep away from people, and actually don't ever say an employee's name.
Okay.
That would be, you need to protect yourself from saying anyone's name that works in the library when you're discussing an issue, especially if it's a negative issue. I would recommend you come to us first and we'll resolve it. Not that you have.
No, that's never been the issue.
Just the second I said it, I'm just not that you have.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of like all the different instances and circumstances. To call everyone a librarian is not accurate.
Right.
Right.
So I can't say that that's not going to cause you a problem in the future, but what kind of problem would it cause? They're not librarians, they have different titles, but they're sort of perceived, they're at the desk, they're perceived like me and, anyone else that doesn't work here as a librarian. I don't think that's a problem. You just have to be careful on what you're saying about them.
Oh, yeah, no, we won't blame
Like-
anyone on, in that way.
Not even negative, just like,
Of
that's right. It's
Yeah.
sort of a tough conversation to have, like, you just have to be mindful, and I know you're not trying to, I know exactly what you're saying, because I call them all librarians too, and I don't know, Like, I don't know, but I think knowing unions, I don't know if they have a problem with that or not. I have to ask them.
Maybe you can just say library staff.
Well, that's what we say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
good.
that's good, no?
Yeah, but the thing, wait, the thing I was getting at was, so if I were to call them librarians, right? It's appropriate to say that's not technically accurate, because actually they are library staff, because a librarian is whatever, versus we're not allowed to say that, which is what creates confusion and a little bit of discomfort. And so
Context is everything.
yeah,
Steve, you have something? Erica?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to weigh in for a little bit. I mean, the notion of, and I wasn't here for any of that meeting, it was my year hiatus. But thinking about like librarians and this, and it as a title, I mean, we have the same thing as professors, assistant professor, associate professor, full professor. Their titles, their positions within a CBA, right, a collective bargaining agreement. I think where kind of my question comes in, and I read the CBA from start to finish, because that's what I do, is just the role of the trustees in relation to the collective bargaining agreement, staff, however we talk about them, right? And especially the roles, not the people necessarily, but the roles, and trying to figure out, where should the trustee board be in talking about those roles, and because it's not clear in the CBA necessarily
No.
either. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's sort of wanting to weigh in just in terms of if we're capital L librarian, little L librarian, and that's hard to really communicate sometimes. So as you said, context is everything, but in the event that there's a misspeak or something like that, I mean, I think the concern is over like the idea that that misspeak or that question without a correction, even library staff, I don't know if staff is, and I can't remember off the top of my head if staff is a term in the CBA. So if there's a preferred term for us to talk broadly about who works in the library.
I think library staff is fine.
Yeah.
I think, so the role of the board has nothing to do with personnel, nothing to do with
No,
the
no.
bargaining agreement, nothing to do
Right.
with bargaining, nothing to do with discipline, hiring, firing. The board is a policy-making board, but you're going to have some discussion over operational things that you may need to do to set policy. So those things can be discussed. We keep away from the names, we keep away from the titles as much as you can. It's just be careful. And if you have any questions, just give me a call. Because it might take a little while, because I think there's been, it's the easiest way is not to say anything at all, not to,
Right.
I think the intent is just easiest, don't discuss it at all, but I think in reality, there's some things operationally that you will need to speak up to develop policy in the library, and I think those things are fair as long as they don't relate to any particular bargaining unit member.
Go ahead.
okay, so one point of clarification and then one question. The clarification would be, we would use that mostly in terms of, is there adequate staff to handle adding X activity? Or is there adequate staff to handle adding Y exhibit? Versus staff did blah, right? So it's usually in the context of an inquiry, so capital or lowercase librarian. One assumes it wouldn't be the biggest deal because the context is completely neutral. It's always a question in terms of what is feasible. But my other question, because I'm familiar with a different sort of a union framework, since the board does not have hiring and firing power, and boards that do often do so over the director and not the remainder of the library staff, and the town is the direct employer and the unionized employees answer to them, I'm just a little perplexed about what sway the union contract has over an elected advisory board. Because
Good question.
within my universe, that would stand outside of that interplay between staff and management, as it were.
Okay. Can I answer?
Of course.
So I did some research into this and I talked to our legal counsel because at the last meeting, there were a lot of discussion about freedom of speech. And I understand that and I respect it and I appreciate it. When I talked to our attorneys, when you are elected onto a board, you are no longer a common resident. You are now part of the town family. You no longer have the freedom of speech to be able to say some things that you would normally be able to say or your neighbor could say outside. So it's an obligation, it's something that you took on when you got on the board, and we can discuss and contact like different things that later on, because I don't know what all of it, I just listened to part of the meeting, but as much as I respect and appreciate that whole freedom of speech thing, obviously, once we're on a board, it's completely different. So to your point, you may not be management, but you represent the town of Auburn. Each one of you do, and you represent it, and you represent this library. So you're then not too far from me, except that I'm here full-time. We're in very similar boats, that there's things we can't say and things we can't do, and it's very similar to you. Your neighbor can. Your husband can. Maybe not yours. But, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can get a legal opinion if you'd like, because I had to look it up myself. Like, it's not something that, oh yeah, I know the answer to that. Like, I looked into myself, because it's a very good point. But there are just some things that you just have to be wary of because you are a board of trustee member.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So is it okay with everyone if I continue on, under A, the last question under A is, where in the agreement would it be identified or interpreted to deny the APL BOT members learning who's been hired or has resigned? Or if we have lost staff, not necessarily people's names, but, so that was a question as part of one.
Sure, I think, and I can talk to Ed about this, and we can talk to the director. We can share some information. We can share, we're short a staff person. We can say the title, we're not gonna say the name.
Right.
We're not gonna say why they left, whether they were terminated, whether they resigned, we're not gonna say any of that. But yes, we can work with the director to prepare something, maybe quarterly or whatever, so that you have an idea of what the staffing is at the library.
Thank you, that's perfect. And then B is the town manager prepares goals. It's been a past practice of the APL BOT that we would recommend goals to the town manager, who could add them to the goals developed by the town manager for the director. Please provide recommended goals that, oh, you said that was your question for us. Is that something that, again, in the past practice, the board was able to work collaboratively with the town manager to at least recommend goals? Would that be something that it would be something that we could revisit?
Yes, so I spoke to Ed, and he said absolutely.
Okay.
If you want to put your goals together and bring them to him on the side, and have a meeting with him to discuss what your thoughts, concerns are, and your goals, then he'll work with the director and we'll work to put those goals together. So absolutely not a problem.
Okay.
That really is important.
Yeah, it is.
And because the past, we've gotten the goals that the director was given by the town manager, but although we could add, there were a number of reasons that we didn't, or didn't regularly do that. And I think it's really good that we can now get that on a regular agenda item.
Great.
I don't know what time of the year would be appropriate to give goals to Ed that we might think are important. I don't know whether that's April or November, or maybe it doesn't matter when.
I would do it as soon as you have an idea of what your goals are. I would meet with him and just say, this is where we're at, and talk to him on when do you need this. And I'm not saying that everything you present to him will actually get through.
Correct.
It might be divided by year, it might be
Sure.
removed. But I think that dialogue's really important so that you understand where he's coming from and he understands where you're coming from. And then we can go from there. But absolutely, I do it as soon as you have them and set up a meeting with him.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before I move to C? APL BOT questions about the process for filling vacant library positions. Does anybody have questions?
I think you stated it was
Yeah.
You gave us
Yeah.
all the answers.
I've been working with
Yeah.
the director. We've gone through job descriptions, we're posting, we're preparing interview questions, we're doing it together. Like, it's just, it seems to be pretty smooth. It might be because I'm new, but everything seems to be in order, so I'm really excited. I'm excited we have a few applicants even for the assistant director position, that are qualified, so hopefully we can get these positions filled.
Would there be any room in terms of either reviewing applications or being part of a hiring committee that any of the members could volunteer for from the Board of Trustees?
I think you should ask Ed that.
Okay,
I think it's up to him.
okay,
What he decides, I can't answer that for him, and it's not something I discuss with him.
okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And then just the last section of our agenda today, Vera, you brought up the last time, facts about open meeting law versus fiction. And I thought this would be an interesting discussion to have with you here, just to make sure, because in the past, to be honest with you, we were often, when I first came on the board, Dory, I was told I couldn't talk to anybody on the board outside of the building. And I know my first few months, I felt it was very strange. I'd leave the room, leave the building, and members of the board wouldn't really respond to me very much when I talked to them. So I questioned it. What is that about? And then there were a number of, I would say, to use your word, missed representations of what is open meeting law versus what is just having a conversation with one member when you see each other at Shaw's or something like that.
So I am no expert, so I recommend training for all of you in this. I think it's really important for all town employees and board members to get the open meeting law training through the AG's office. I can tell you what I know. Some of it I learned the hard way, I'm gonna be honest. This is not legal advice, okay?
Okay.
You can never have a quorum. So for instance, if the board meets here and 3 of you are in a parking lot, you have a quorum. Are you talking about work? Probably not. The appearance of the conflict is there. I hate to say this, and I'm not a lawyer, but it's reality. We'll get a lawyer in to answer this. My old board, when I worked in Blackstone, if there were 3 of them going to the same restaurant, one of them would have to sit somewhere else, and yes. Even if, and a lot of times you're talking about family, or because you work together and you other things, you may not be talking about business at all. The appearance of the conflict is what you need to be aware of. 2 people can talk, I think you can talk. I wouldn't talk about agenda items, those should be done all in the meetings.
That's right.
But you can definitely have conversations. But that's what I know because I've dealt with it personally. Emails are the other big thing. This is how I found out the wrong way, is that if you I sent an email out to my board of directors. No one can respond to that email because then you're starting a dialogue. If someone needed to talk to me about the email, they need to respond separately to me directly. So there's little nuances like that, but I really think, I'm no expert. We're all learning how to maneuver through this. It's not easy, but I think we should all get some training on it. But yeah, it's as simple as 3 board members. I think of a restaurant because that's where it happened in Blackstone. The appearance of a conflict, and it was an issue.
I would add, I apologize because I was supposed to present on this and I didn't get the opportunity to take as deep a dive into this as I wanted to because I've been slammed with work things. I did chat with a lawyer and I did dip into the training. So quorum is right now, for us, quorum would be 3 because we're down a member, but quorum would be 4 when we're fully.
It's interesting, and we might be able to get that clarified today. I was told by the past clerk that the quorum is still 4. Even when we're down a member, it doesn't matter. If the quorum is 4.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
I believe that's actually up to the town council to determine how they want to interpret that particular reading of quorum. Is it always based on total number of seats filled? Or is it based on, total number of seats on the board versus the actual number of seats
It
filled?
depends on how you read it, because I have an executive board right now with 3 people out, and our quorum is the exact number of people who exist or not on leave. And no one can miss a meeting, ever. Right, and so, but it doesn't change because just because they're on leave, that doesn't change the quorum number. But that may not be the same everywhere, that's according to our.
And maybe
I'll
that's,
find out.
maybe it's a town clerk interpretation.
I'll find out,
Yeah.
I'll check with her and I'll check with legal and let you know, I don't know myself.
But the lawyer that I spoke to did say it, that the line is really, you can't discuss things wherein you're deliberating issues that could be about the.
Right.
So we could talk about the library 10 years ago, or like, what are the flower boxes for? Or, like, things like this. We can talk about things that are not on the agenda, not anything that we would discuss here, or
Or what other libraries do.
what your favorite flavor of cake is.
I think one of the ways that I try to keep in line with it is to not discuss anything that you need to discuss here. So something you're gonna put on the agenda that you would put on the agenda to discuss here, because the residents of Auburn wanna be part of that discussion. So that's sort of what I kept in my mind when I was going through it. But I really recommend training, and I don't know how you wanna do it, we can talk about it later. Because I think it's valuable for especially when we get new members, and a refresher. I know there's been a lot of things that you can't do this, you can't do this. Well, let's find out, because I'm not an expert.
We actually had a training a couple of years ago, but there was some different members, so I'm not sure who
That's the
participated.
thing.
Yeah.
It's online.
Yeah,
It's
That
online.
training is online.
That's what we did.
Has a really, like the state has a
Yeah.
great one online that
So
you,
maybe we can just do that.
Yeah.
and
That
they,
sounds-
they do have their own legal people that you can ask questions,
That's
that it's their
super.
specialty.
That's what we need.
Yeah, right? That's
Yeah,
what I'm thinking.
I think that's great.
yeah.
That's what I didn't have time to do.
Not a problem, not a problem. So I saw my notes from the last meeting, and just what was suggested, and I thought it was great from Vera, was in terms of like getting feedback from people, feedback at auburn.gov. That was what you suggested earlier when you talked about the email, so I'm sorry, I forgot I had that note. So as far as open meeting law facts, do you want to table that piece, and do you
Yes,
want to
please.
present at the next meeting?
I would, I will plan better.
And we talked about Steve presenting about ideas to get feedback from the community
In November.
in November, so that would be in November 1st. Does anybody want to add anything before I move to adjourn today?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you.
That's what I was hoping you would say.
This conversation is helpful.
Yes,
It had way too many years, actually,
yeah,
where these things kept coming up and created a lot of conflict. And I think what you said about the goals that the board would develop, it's really strange. And I think this is an appropriate place to bring this up. Steve, Vera, and I are supposed to be talking about whether we'd like to try to change the charter again in order to change some of our responsibilities. But you've already taken care of one of those things that we were very concerned about. And, the other two things were to participate in the hiring of the director and to participate in the evaluation in some way, to be able to give that information to them. And because of the conversation we had here today, I'm wondering if the rest of the board would approve that the three of us have a conversation with Ed. Pardon?
And Erica.
Well, we had only 3 people on
Oh,
that
okay.
subcommittee.
Okay, that's fair.
That was the reason for it, to talk to him about, instead of continuing to pursue concerns about charter change, to talk about whether there are some of these things that could happen without all of that.
I believe you'll be happy with his response.
Well, you're
Yeah, I
making
think
me
you'll be
very happy.
My only concern is I'm not sure if 3 of you should go. You might want to choose 2, 3, it could be a quorum.
Well, let's find that out.
It's so like,
Yeah.
I'll find out.
Okay, good.
Definitely find out.
Because there are 6 of us, and that's what,
So it could be 4, you're right, it could be 4, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
no, that's
I
fair,
have
that's fair.
PTSD if you haven't heard it. No quorum.
This was the whole intent of the open meeting thing, right? Because everybody has this, am I okay to say this or to meet with these people? So we were trying to take the edge off the PTSD.
It's uncomfortable and it's, we've all gone through it in government, open meeting law, ethics. And it's just something you have to keep top of mind, and you don't want to make a mistake. And unfortunately, we're human, and sometimes we do. So I just think, open communication and always learning about these things, I think will help us all.
That's great, thank you.
Is it fair if I can say this on behalf of the board, that I think that your attendance tonight is just such a generous gesture of goodwill? And like an ambassador, and I really appreciate you being here tonight. Because I know that we are all, when I advertised on Facebook to get a new member, and we were lucky enough to get Steve, I talked about what a rich relationship this is to be a part of this community. And it's a thinking and learning community, and just, we want to grow, and we want to help people grow. That's what we're all about. So your attendance tonight, is it fair to say we appreciate it?
Deeply.
It's very fair
Very,
to say
very,
that.
very
Thank
much
you.
so.
I'll be happy to come back in the future. I have no problems doing that. I meant it, I'll be a resource. I might not always know the answer though, no, but I'll find out.
Thank you.
That's very,
all
very
it
modest and appreciated as well. So our next meeting team will be Wednesday, November 1st, 2023, 6:30 in this very place. And does anybody, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
still have.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
We talked last time about the materials that Gene sent out for evaluating 3 of those programs, that those were the most intensive that we've ever seen.
Yep,
And be interesting to find out what the results of those would be. But I think, I couldn't find the email that Gene had sent.
yeah.
But I did ask her for that, and what she did is send me the 3 evaluations. And I'll be happy to share them with the rest of the board,
Okay.
so we all have them and take a look at that. I thought they were very interesting in the response, so this is a good step
So is your
forward.
request from Molly to get the outcome of those
To
evaluations?
find out,
Okay.
when we can have the outcome. of those.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay.
Great, does anybody have anything else?
Yes.
Okay, go Matt. You're on a roll.
No, I had asked for the ERIS 5 years of information, and what I was looking for really is, I don't want to spend all the hours going through 5 different reports and trying to find the same thing on each one of those
Right.
reports. I'm wondering if there's a summary of that for 5 years that
Okay.
we could take.
Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, can I
Sure.
speak to that?
Yes, please.
So when I listened to the meeting last week, I called the director. I didn't know what the AIRS report was. She sent me a copy. What exactly do you need? Because I think I can get it differently at town hall. That saves a lot of time. And like, if you or the director had to go through the 5 years of those reports, it would take forever. But so what are you looking for turnover?
No, I was actually looking to be able to compare those 5 years, and I thought maybe the state would have something, because everybody has to turn that in every year, and I thought that maybe they'd have a report that we could compare 5 years for a community.
They have the 5 individual that we sent.
Oh.
So we checked on that as well, because we were hoping there'd be some sort of a database, but
That's what I was thinking.
yeah, there isn't. So I didn't know if there's any part, if there's any part of the report that I may be able to get. Think about it if you
Sure.
want, you don't have to answer me now.
I would
But
need to,
to have, that's a really difficult task. So if you can narrow it down and look at it and let me know, I'd be happy to see what I can do. And Jean was very helpful with this too. She sent me all the information that I needed, and we talked to the state, so
that's great, thank you.
absolutely.
Did you have anything else?
No.
Then can I ask just a clarifying question, because I might have missed this beat. Cynthia had asked that we look at the language of the, within the collective, the collections policy, to change some language. So what is the outcome in terms, I know that we left it open that we could put the policy up but make some edits. So how would the subcommittee or the board like to move forward with making changes or edits?
What I would like to do, I'd like to have if the Friends are going to vote on this in some way, to say that they were concerned with this, that that's what the Friends really wanted to do, that's one thing. But we can put language in this. I think something that you said, Vera, or whoever, the questions can be directed to the APL Friends, that this email would be fine. Do you want
Yeah.
to talk about this and we can give something back to the
We'll
board
do
next
that
time?
elections policy magic, we keep doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we can
Okay.
do that.
We'll talk about that language, and then maybe if there's a meeting of the Friends, we could offer that to them.
Okay.
And see if that's acceptable.
Do you want to do a I mean, it's the same subcommittee
It's the
that the
same
three of us
thing,
were
yeah.
on. Do
Yeah.
you want to do you want to revisit that
Yeah.
and just tighten it up and then
Yeah.
suggest it to the Friends?
Yeah.
Okay. What were you
Cynthia,
gonna
do
say?
we have
You
your
good with that?
contact info? I don't have your contact info. We meet like strangers passing in the
Absolutely.
daytime on the street, but you know.
And as I've been sitting here, I haven't been totally idle. I marked up my copy a bit and inserted just a sentence that says the Friends accept book donations and monetary gifts, period. Contact the Friends at friendsofauburn.library@gmail.com for additional information regarding donations.
We like it, perfect. We can do
Okay?
that.
So I can give you this.
Yes,
I'll be
please.
happy to-
Thank you,
and
Cynthia. Appreciate you.
I put some other little chicken scratches on here too, which is, you know,
Great.
like
All good.
That
little
sounds great.
things and.
Can you put your email on there in case we have a question?
I will write my email right on it.
That would be super awesome.
Great. Anything else? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right.
Oh,
Thank
are you sure?
gentlemen. We're closing at 7:42.